We're gonna get going. Listen Night Podcast. We're back. Let's just jump right into it. This week we're gonna be doing shows that we'd reboot. If you're watching us, let me get this out ahead of time. If you're watching us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything like that. Sorry, if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything like that, make sure you share this with your friends. Make sure you rate and review. Follow us if you're listening on Spotify. If you're currently watching this on YouTube,
we love mean comments. The meaner, the better.
Yeah. Let's make it clear that mean is fine. Mean comments are welcomed.
Go so far as to say that we prefer mean comments.
Yeah.
Because it's basically like being friends with us. It's just bullying all the time. And we're happy to be your targets.
We got to be careful what we wish for. I feel like next week we're going to get on. It's just going to be like 2 hours of us crying. Like reading
that's going to happen. That's going to happen eventually anyway.
I mean, if we get enough mean comments, we'll read them on the next pod. I'm happy.
Ooh.
Unless they involve like racial slurs or something like that. So please don't use racial slurs or
racial slurs to us three white guys.
To the three whitest guys in existence.
Yeah. There's enough flaws that you can find in the three of us that you don't need to resort to racial slurs. We do know that, white men in this country are super oppressed. So we understand why that'd be the direction you go in, but please don't.
It's just not fair how much I get paid. It's just not fair.
Right. Or just the economic situation we grew up in, or the nice part of town. But let's not focus on how easy we had it. We're three white guys with a podcast. Everyone knows how easy we had it. Like I said, we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna go first. Andrew's gonna follow up, and then Thomas is gonna go last this week. And we're doing shows we would reboot. And as always, we didn't put a criteria on this, so I can kind of see this going in a couple of different directions depending on how we feel about the word reboot. And I thought about texting the guys about it to get clarification on what we mean by that word. I decided to just save it for the pod, and it might come up, it might not. So
it's gotten to the point where you don't even need to clarify to the audience that we didn't set the ground rules ahead of time. They know.
Our clarification is a lack of clarification.
I also did the same thing where I was like, I should text him like, I'm going two different directions. And I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Go with it.
What's the worst that happens? You lose again or I win again? Like, oh no.
I've put in 18 things on a list of 5 before. So like
18 is severely diminishing the number. The most recent pod we did, you put like choices or something like that, or options or whatever. Maybe that was
I got grilled on Instagram for it.
Yeah, you got bullied on Instagram, and you deserve to be bullied. And I'm sure it made you a slightly better person, because that's what bullying does.
I don't know. When you're as bad as Andrew, I don't think you even get better.
Yeah, I don't.
He plateaued.
Yeah,
a long time ago. All right, I'm gonna get started. I was going through a lot of shows. I was literally going by decade of shows that I've loved and shows that either were canceled too early, or I think would have a good modern reimagining, or might just be worth having like a sequel series to, or something like that. The first show that is going to be on my list in the number 5 spot.
Hold on.
As you always do before I get into my list.
Does that mean you think a sequel is a reboot? Is that what you're saying?
No. I don't. None of these would be. Well, I mean, I guess there are cases where you could consider them a sequel series, but I would think that they would be completely disconnected from the original one. It's just like nothing stops them from being a sequel series. And really, that'll come into play when we get to, I think, my first 2 picks. My first.
Just curious if you were dumb or not. So,
I am. Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Not really. I don't know. We're 12 episodes in. Don't think it's really up for debate where my intelligence is.
Yeah, but you keep winning though. I think our audience is dumb.
Because our audience is dumb.
I think America is.
We're talking to a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure also that we're our audience, and we're just lying to each other about how many burner accounts we have when we vote every week.
Yeah, I get shit for burner accounts, yet I keep losing. So clearly someone else has more burner accounts.
But that's the thing. I'm just pretty confident that you're misclicking with your fat sausage. And you're accidentally making Andrew and I.
You keep accidentally hitting Griffin, and then you're like, damn it, you make another burner account to do it again.
Every
and
week
you keep hitting Griffin.
Order on the screen. I mean, like, what am I supposed to do?
Not for the first time. My illiteracy is really coming back to bite me.
Yeah, as it would. Okay, number 5 on my list, from the mid to late 90s, the Animorphs TV show, based on the book series Animorphs. I think this show maybe only lasted a season, and I don't even know if they actually aired every single episode of it, but it was pretty bad. Pretty not great show. It was one of those shows that really needed like modern level, like 2020 time period CGI, but it had mid 90s CGI on a low budget, and I think it was potentially like a Nickelodeon show or whatever, so they were certainly not throwing money at it. They had to save up for like Rocket Power and cool shows like that. But the book series, if anybody hasn't read it, it's a fantastic book series. It's definitely like it's a kid series that grows into being a young adult series. But it has a lot of very adult themes in it about like the traumas of war and familiar relationships and terrorism and things along those lines. And the TV show that they had back then, it just really didn't have a chance to shine. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't good, but with a proper budget and potentially like HBO having it or something like that, not even necessarily HBO, the CW could have it at this point, and it would have a much better CGI budget than it had back then. Not, please, CW execs that are watching this, please do not purchase the rights to Animorphs. I do not want to watch the version of your show that'll come out. HBO though, call me. Yeah, I mean it's
why would they call you?
Why would they not call me?
I know you provide.
You don't have the rights.
You're right. I don't have the rights, but I think I could be a script doctor. I think I could improve on the Animorphs, universe. The woman that wrote Animorphs only wrote like there's like 70 books. There's like 55 normal books, and then like a bunch of like anthology books or whatever. She only actually wrote 25 of them. I think she had ghostwriters for the majority of them, and she just gave them like. So
there are all the people more qualified. No, they were all.
We are equally qualified. I'm a man with a podcast, and she's a successful female author. We're the same.
Hey, I'm an Patreon exec. I want to make Animorphs. Let me get this weird guy who mentioned it in a podcast no one's listening to come do the show.
I mean, you can spit out as many facts about Animorphs as you want. It doesn't make any more sense that you would be called by HBO to make this series.
I'm going to send some emails when we get off the pod today. And, in 5 to 7 years, when I'm like an extra in a movie, I'm going to consider that me being successful in Hollywood.
You could be the Animorphed version of a person.
Exceptionally mean thing to say.
No, all the bagging on you for your crappy dream aside, is actually a pretty good pick. The show did suck, but it's a good story that could be told nowadays, probably significantly better. So your dream sucks, but good pick.
I never watched it. I'm kind of picturing how bad the morphing CGI is in my head. I feel like I can tell just how awful it was. So I agree that it would be improved in today's day and age, even at a moderately low budget, just based on the technology that we have. That would help quite a bit.
And
I think you can picture exactly what the movie was.
Yeah, you know exactly what 90s morphing looked like. Just picture like everybody looked like Ivan Ooze in the Power Rangers movie, but even like lower budget than that as they were transforming. They were just like amorphous blobs.
I was about to say, the 90s were a big decade for morphing overall.
The 90s were a big decade. Just thinking that like we had way better CGI than we did, and you go back and watch things, and you're like, this might have been a great show movie, but it looks awful.
Yeah, but at the time, that was great. At the time, it was great compared to what they had before. Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, I would probably just not use that much CGI in my movie.
Yeah, but like you don't get what we have now without that.
Sure.
Baby steps.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that you should wait until technology is perfect.
Griffin, just think of it like the cover of an Animorphs book. It's not like it just goes from the person to the animal. It's like all those steps in between.
I was gonna say, Andrew, that's actually what it looked like, but like the middle part of it.
Yeah, it was the middle one all the time, and everything was all super dark. Like they did everything in like super dark scenes because they couldn't afford to do it in like brightly lit areas. And it was still like, even as a kid, I was like, this looks horrendous. All right.
Not a bad pick.
Animorphs. Yeah, thank you. Number 4, and I was actually watching this show the other day, and Julia walked into the room and she was like, "What the fuck is this?" Because you can tell, another show from the 90s where you can tell how of its era it is. And they actually recently announced, and I sent it in our group chat, they announced that the next Transformers movie might have some inspiration from this. My next pick, my number 4 pick, is Transformers Beast Wars, which you guys may remember from like the late 90s. It was the CGI Transformers show that used to be, I think it was on Fox Kids or maybe Kids WB. And it was like generations and generations after the actual like Autobots and Decepticons wars that you're used to. They crash land on Earth. They take on animal forms instead of, I'm realizing now that this is incredibly similar to Animorphs, but it's not important. They take on
morphing decade.
Forms. Yeah,
big morphing decade.
Huge morphing decade. They take on animal forms instead of like car forms and stuff like that. And the storyline is fantastic. And the character dynamics are really cool. And even like the designs, like they had a money set of toys back in the day that I had a bunch of when I was a little kid. Like the character designs, like the concepts for them were really cool, but the actual like CGI itself and like what they were trying to do with it, much like with Animorphs, nowhere near ready for it. And now I don't know if you guys have watched the Transformers shows that they have on Netflix, but they're I mean, like they're not the greatest storylines, but they look super great. And Netflix is clearly willing to shell out money for animated shows like this. I think Beast Wars is like the perfect one to bring back because people our age largely talk about it being like one of their favorite Transformers shows because we weren't around for like the 80s and early 90s heyday of Transformers.
Yeah, I should have known that all the Fox and WB shows were going to be on your list. You lacking cable child.
Cableless bastard.
Cableless bitch.
Right. Well,
but yeah, no, I again, I don't think I've watched that show. It sounds cool. I'll come over and watch it with you, and Julia can make fun of both of us.
If you want to watch it, it's streaming. I don't know if you have the Tubi app on. I think it's available on like any Roku or Samsung.
On a Roku, yeah, I've seen it. I've never gone to it.
It's one of those ones just like Hulu where you can not have a subscription to it and you can watch it with commercials. But I'm pretty sure it's the only place that they have it streaming. If you can get past the way that it looks, it's a super good show. Like it's a great show.
How many seasons were there?
I think there were 3 seasons of Beast Wars, and then a couple years after, like right after Beast Wars ended, they had a follow-up series called Beast Machines. It was a sequel series, and they changed the character designs, and I'm pretty sure the original writers left, if I remember correctly, and they brought in a new team of writers. So it got really convoluted, and a lot of like character motivations changed. Nowhere near as good of a show, but those are both on Tubi. Beast Machines was a better looking show because it did start around like 99 or 2000, but it was a lesser show in terms of quality.
Yeah, Transformers was never really like my thing. Shows, movies, or anything. Like it's a show that I would be into. I just never was.
Yeah,
put it that way.
I think like little like the 80s Transformers, like the animated. We missed that. Like we just missed the boat on that. We were just born a little bit too late, and then we were like teenagers when the Michael Bay ones came out, but we had like no real tie to Transformers. The only ones that I cared about were Beast Wars.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. Where like it was, honestly, it's kind of like G.I. Joe for me, where it's like it was before us, and then it came like in the middle of us, childhood. Like it came back, and like it was like something we would have been into, but it just kind of we were right in the middle of it. So, bad pick.
Bad pick.
Awful pick.
Yeah.
All right.
Doesn't relate relate enough to me to be a good pick.
Right. If you end up watching the show and enjoying it still might be a bad pick, but I think you'll see why watching it you'd be like, oh yeah, this would look really good with a modern reboot. But bad pick. It is what it is. Number 3 on my list and this may be a surprising pick to some because this is, one of my favorite shows of all time. The OC. I think there is a super ripe opportunity for a reboot of the OC that does not exclusively focus on a lily white family like it's the most monochromatic cast.
Yeah, so same cast?
No. Well, I mean, they're in like their 40s.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
No, definitely new cast. And I mean, it can be a similar concept behind it, like kid from the wrong side of the tracks gets adopted by, I mean, like, it's not like a new concept. Kid from the wrong side of the tracks gets adopted by a well-to-do family and, becomes the subject of controversy at his new school and as like a teenager growing up. But the OC as a show was like super influential in launching a lot of like indie music and in making nerd culture and geek culture like really popular and cool and trendy in like the early 2000s. And I think there's like a lot of credit that you can give the Seth Cohen character for making comic books and like comic book movies and everything cool to a lot of people, because for at least the first couple seasons the show was a zeitgeist. Like, it was the most popular thing on TV by a lot. And I think there's room for a more modern, less exclusively white version of that in a modern day California, where you're still giving a lot of like indie bands and indie rappers and stuff an opportunity to launch their music and kind of be at the forefront of whatever the next cultural revolution is. TV doesn't have that ability as much as it used to, because there's no like everyone is sitting down on their couch on a Monday night to watch something at 8 p.m. But, streaming services still have the ability for that. And there are still shows that do, connect with people on a huge level. And the OC, I think, it's been 15 years.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see what that reboot would look like, because I feel like the OC is one of those shows that's such a product of its own time that I can't even like picture a new version of it not being cringy. But maybe they'd find like a new way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those shows that's so connected with it. Like there's some shows where you're like, this humor, and like, not that it's humorous, but I'm saying like this could be put in any era and like change up the characters a little bit and it'd be fine. Whereas that's a show that I don't know, I can't even picture it outside of that early 2000s like time frame.
It was one of those shows that I feel, and obviously like we had not a whole lot in common with the characters on the OC, but it's really rare that shows really capture like what teenagers sound like when they're having like day-to-day conversations. And like, there's not a lot of shows where like somebody will like make a joke or a witty comment and people around them will laugh at it because it takes up airtime and it's not something that like actors are encouraged to do. It was one of those shows that it felt like everybody had a really organic relationship with each other.
So I don't know. I'm struggling with the definition of a reboot, because I feel like what you're asking for is just a show that does what the OC did. And it doesn't sound like a reboot. Like,
I mean, same initial plot structure, and then just let it develop for
I feel like that's
2021 audience instead of a 2004 audience.
I mean, you just need the same title and the same theme song, and then that's a reboot, right?
You 100%.
That's what I'm thinking.
There's 0% chance you would change the theme song.
Exactly what it's going to be is, hey, the OC 2 Electric Boogaloo, same music, and it's just different characters. Like,
if they called it the OC2 Electric Boogaloo, it would have 100 million viewers on the season premiere. There's no way people would not tune in to watch it.
The OC was never my thing. Like, my sisters were super into it, and like I never sat down and watched it. I do think it's one I would have enjoyed. Like, I don't think I could watch it now and enjoy. No, I don't think I would.
No, you can't.
But I'm not going to. So I guess the way you described it, I just don't see it as a reboot, and you're just like, I want this show, but different characters. And I don't know. I
want this show, but blacker and rappier.
Yeah.
I want Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Hey, I'm yeah, I'm into that.
Right. I mean,
yeah, like, you want to show that.
I mean, the OC is, like 15, 20 years after Fresh Prince, and they have a lot of commonalities in them. You can say that they are very similar shows in certain ways, but I mean, so much of it is like the character dynamic. They might not be able to reproduce it, but there might be room for that kind of show.
I agree with like what you're looking for, or a show that promotes the independent music, independent culture, and also the nerd culture, like you called it, or whatever it would be now. I mean, I nerd culture is so accepted now. I don't know what they would focus on, you know?
They'd have him be a jock and get bullied for like being good at both basketball and football or something.
Nah, they did that
like in 21 Jump Street, Channing Tatum.
Right. Okay, so that's been done. I don't know. I'll think of something else. Yeah. I'm not going to script doctor the new OC show. I'm only doing Animorphs, so allow me to make mistakes there.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's call it a good pick. We'll meet in the middle. Let's meet in the middle and call it a great pick.
It was a pick.
That's not the middle. Right. That's not the middle. Yeah, a pick is the middle.
Pick. Okay. All right. Well, great. So we agree that it's a great pick. My number 2 pick, and I'm gonna. It's a two-part. There's the cheating Andrew answer to this. I'm finally gonna get into the cheating a little bit. I
didn't cheat at all this time. You'll see.
I fucking don't believe you. I'm gonna cheat a little bit this week, and I'm gonna say my initial answer is any show that Aaron Sorkin produced. So that could be The West Wing. It could be Sports Night. It could be The Newsroom. Any of those
could be, but which one is it?
I would take a reboot of any of them. If I had to absolutely pick a show to reboot,
you do.
I think
you do have to pick one.
Yeah, okay. But we're gonna put it in parentheses. Aaron Sorkin is the man. He wrote Moneyball. It's fine. If I had to pick one, it's The West Wing. I think The Newsroom is too recent. I think Sports Night, while it could be interesting and fun and funny and all that, like it's just not hugely pertinent. I think The West Wing is a show that you could honestly reboot every 20 years you wouldn't, but you could, in whatever American culture is at that point, and you would have a show that is wildly different than the previous iteration of it, outside of, I hope, a sense of idealism and optimism about like what our government could be if it was made up by good people. And I think, if Aaron Sorkin's still working on it, like it's going to have Sorkinisms and his particular writing style for good or bad, but like it's an integral part of having that kind of show.
So I just want to get this out of the way. You don't want a reboot of The West Wing. You want a new Aaron Sorkin show.
No, I want to.
No. You want an Aaron Sorkin show.
I want a Aaron Sorkin show. Well, yeah, I do want an Aaron Sorkin show. I would take anything that he'd give us at this point. Aaron Sorkin, make a show about like baseball or something. I would love that. No, I want a White House based show where it follows the president and his chief of staff and the like tertiary people around the chief of staff. Like, okay. I want to see what that looks like in the political climate that nobody could have predicted 20 years ago, because we are in a wildly different space than we were in the 90s and early 2000s.
My question was going to be, season 1 of the reboot, is it based on the Trump White House, or is it based on the Biden White House, or is it based on neither?
I don't think you do it based on either. I mean, like,
Trump's first White House or Trump's second White House?
Oh, no. President Bartlett. I don't think he was necessarily based on like Clinton or George H.W. or anything like that. I think he was kind of a combination of a number of different presidents.
Yeah, it was.
So I think you put in elements of Obama and even George W., because it was like during the W years, and elements of Biden and elements of Trump, but they don't necessarily need to be the president themselves. It could just be the people around the president have elements of what politics have devolved into. Aaron Sorkin, I'm happy to work on this one with you. I will jump on this project with you. Call me. My number might be on the screen. Who's to say?
It'd be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if this were to happen one day, if they were to redo it. And I also think you just got my dad's vote because it's one of his favorite shows of all time.
I honestly believe it's one of the best shows of all time. It's definitely Aaron Sorkin's best work.
I do agree. It is ripe for rebooting because the political climate does change and blah, blah, blah. Like, it is ripe for rebooting. and I'm sure it'd do fine. It'd probably do great. But again, you just want Aaron Sorkin's show.
Specifically about the White House. Called the West Wing. Shit, call it the East Wing. It wouldn't make any sense.
I was going to say,
call it the West Wing of the White House. But I don't give a shit what you call it.
That's where they have all the tours that are open to the public. You should be a show about welcoming people into the White House for a quick
Honestly,
tour.
that probably.
I think they made that show. It was called White House Down, and it starred Channing Tatum, and he killed a lot of people in the White House.
No, you're thinking of the other one with Jamie Foxx.
That's the Channing Tatum.
No, the East Wing.
Gerard Butler. The
East Wing would be a show like on HGTV with Rachel Ray hosting it.
No, see, I think
Rachel Ray hosts things on HGTV. I feel like she's more like a woman herself.
Yeah, she's more of a food person, but
I think the East Wing would be like a comedy
exclusively a food person,
Fox or CBS or something, and it's like the characters within the tour of White House.
Yeah, and it would probably be awful. Like if it was done with
funny. I'm going to write it.
Okay. Okay. Aaron Sorkin.
We got a lot of emails to write after
I'm going to get a writing credit before you do.
I believe that. They're not going to know what you wrote, but you're going to get credit. Okay. Pretty great list so far. I'd say maybe a winning list, maybe a top 2 list at worst. If there were 4 people on this pod, I'd still be top 2. I imagine our 4th.
We got to stop doing the thing where we grade our own lists, like as we're saying them. We have to.
I'm pretty sure it's why I keep.
To be fair,
because I say that I'm great, and then by the time that it gets to the next list, people have clicked out of the video.
I was like, because to be fair, a lot of times I say I don't like my list after saying my list. So
we're honest about it.
Griffin might be onto something.
I
think into existence.
Yeah. Self-belief's a big thing coming from the most whiplash emotional person on earth. Number 1 on my list, and I think this is one that you guys should be able to get behind. I think this is one actually anybody can get behind. MASH. I think MASH is ripe for a modern reboot.
I didn't realize you were so old.
MASH is one of the greatest pieces of cinema ever created. Second off, I mean, I say modern reboot, like obviously it would probably be a focus on the Middle East. So it would probably be like, I don't know, like 2008, 2009 centered. But MASH changed a lot of people's opinions. Just not so much on the war. Well, I mean, people had a more negative opinion towards the war following MASH. Like people were a lot less gung-ho, militaristic, and patriotic. But it also, it in a theatrical way, shone a light on people that you don't necessarily see a lot of media about as it relates to war, like the ones that are putting people back together and seeing the horrors of war, but not actively participating in them. While also having a lot of like comedy and charismatic characters and stuff like that. I think I don't know honestly if you would be able to do it in today's climate. I don't know if people would act like it's more gung-ho military than it is. But I would be interested as fuck if somebody said they were doing a MASH reboot.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how they would tackle it and what it would be like. Because if it got the general public less imperialistic and less hawkish, then I'm all for it. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. I know like how good of a show, like how acclaimed it is. And maybe it could work, surrounding the war in Afghanistan or something like that. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't think it could work in modern times. I don't think it would. I agree. It'd be nice if it was something, there was a show like that about a war we could relate to, a war we understand a little. I wouldn't be surprised if someone tries to do it. I just don't think it'd work.
Yeah. It's a weird one. Like, the idea of it really appeals to me, but I think it would come under a lot of controversy, and a lot of people on both sides of the aisle and a lot of just like the public would be like it either wouldn't glorify it enough, or it would glorify it too little, or the characters would be too charismatic, and it would get like people that are like all war is bad all the time to be like there's nobody good involved. Like there's so much nuance to it, and it's such a different media time But that's also part of why I think it'd be interesting if you rebooted it, because there's a complete possibility that it's just a media clusterfuck and it only lasts like half a season or whatever. But the stories that end up coming out from it end up being super entertaining and insightful on like what the industry is like and like what kind of backlash there is for a show like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, yeah, you either got to go in that direction or just like a completely satirical, like making fun of the war type show. And like that is a fine line to draw too. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and
you should write it, Griffin.
I'm not.
I can't see it being successful in modern time like MASH was, you know. And I guess I can't even quantify how successful MASH was while it was airing. I mean, I assume it was. I know it's hugely successful after, you know, the way it's thought of. But I don't know. I think I would not, like I said, I would not be surprised if someone did try to do it. I just don't think it would succeed. I think West Wing is more likely to succeed. Sorry, East Wing.
Yeah, sorry, East Wing. East Wing starring Channing Tatum.
Yeah, you threw me for a loop with your top two, because you had like some feel good comedies and animated shows, and then you got more serious with it.
What was his feel good comedy? Animals? Beast Wars?
I don't know.
Yeah, not comedies. I guess it was not comedies. I guess I was thinking just more
like kids shows.
Right? Like yeah. Well, mine is full of comedies, so get ready.
I fully believe you, but you know, as always, I do, and I'm just gonna put it out ahead of time. I feel like I've probably got the most diverse list, and we could just chalk this one up for the win column for the old Griff Cat again.
I don't think you're winning this week, but give your recap.
Okay, all right. Well, to give my recap, number 5.
I don't think you're winning this week, but give your recap.
Okay, cool. But to give my recap, number 5 on my list was Animorphs. And I'm not putting my fingers up in the sky this time because Thomas bullies me when I do it, and I can't deal with that today. Number 4 was Transformers Beast Wars. Number 3 was The OC. Thomas, stop counting. It's throwing me off. Number 2 was really any of the shows that Aaron Sorkin worked on, but specifically the West Wing reboot entitled The East Wing. And number 1 was MASH.
See, like, you had me like 5 minutes ago with like, yeah, West Wing's a good pick, but then you come in here and just reinforce your Andrew bullshit with just anything by Aaron Sorkin. I
gave a specific one within my Andrew. Like I cheated like a little. Like he was like 3 shows. It wasn't like 97.
Can we stop referring to cheating as Andrew bullshit?
No,
like that's not
fine. No, he's right. We won't.
Of the show.
We won't call it Andrew bullshit.
I just feel like you're leading the witness.
You're Andrewing, and I don't like it.
Yeah, we're not leading anyone. Everyone knows you to be a cheater, and I'm not going to dive into it more than that.
You led us to this conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, you have only yourself to blame.
Well, I'm here to redeem myself. I'm here to put the public's faith back in me, because I'm sticking to my list this time. There's no asterisks. There's no catches. There's no cheating. Nothing like that. I just got 5 shows that I want rebooted. Okay, you ready?
I can't wait to
blow your socks off.
5 shows that have already been rebooted, and I'm gonna fly back home and I'm gonna slap the shit out of it.
Ah, shit. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so my number 5 is the only one that might technically fall in that category. It's Futurama.
Right
it's Futurama. Okay, Futurama was not rebooted. It changed network. It changed networks, and it was like canceled and picked back up immediately, but it was not rebooted. And this is one that didn't end so long ago, so it's like kind of quick to do a reboot, I guess. But I think it could be done quickly. I just think Futurama's one of the most underrated and hilarious animated shows. I've always just thought they did a great job of like balancing like dark humor, nerdy humor, like math jokes, sci-fi jokes, along with just like typical Simpsons type stuff. And I miss that show, and I think they could go for plenty more seasons. Maybe not as many as The Simpsons, but you know, it's time to reboot it.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I love Futurama. I definitely like wasn't into it like early on, like I wasn't watching it, but as soon as I started watching it, I mean, at this point that was years ago. I think Futurama's agree. It's super for something that did run as long as it did. I think it's still underrated because it doesn't get put in by the general public, I'd say, in the same category as some of the other adult animation. And like, yeah, it almost made my list because yeah, what didn't end that long ago, but it ended long enough ago where there's so much that has happened that they could then bring into the show, like because the different presidents, obviously, but yeah, Futurama, there's so much material it could pull from now that would be just as funny as it was when it was airing.
So this is kind of why, like, great show, love it. I mean, season to season, probably better, more consistent than The Simpsons was, because The Simpsons had such a significant drop off. But obviously, it went a lot less time. I don't really think it needs to be rebooted. Like, I don't think it's a great reboot pick personally, because I don't think like it's relatively timeless. Like, obviously there's like political references, and just like entertainment references to like the, I guess, latest part of the 90s and early 2000s, and then when they brought it back to like the early 2010s. But so much of the humor is so much less topical than like a lot of like Simpsons humor or Family Guy humor or a lot of other like animated shows from that time period, that like you could probably throw it on in 20 years and nobody's really going to struggle to understand like 98% of an episode. I'd like it to come back. Like if they were like, hey, we're going to do a continuation of the show where it's like the same characters and everything else and like same animation team and same voice cast and all that, that'd be totally awesome. Doesn't even need to be a sequel. Just keep making content with those people, even though they kind of had a wrap up at the end. But I don't know if it like I can't really envision what a reboot would look like that is all that different from what like the original was.
I get what you're saying, and I actually, maybe this is where we have a difference of opinion in what makes a good reboot, because to me a lot of the reboots are like what you're describing, where they're like they want to take the magic of what happened in the 90s or 80s or whenever it aired, and just, oh, what would those characters do in today's day and age, and like change the humor from 90s humor to 2020s humor. And like, to me, that occasionally works, but a lot of times it's pretty cringe. Whereas like a show like Futurama, where it's just like consistently funny, doesn't matter the era it's in, like, so maybe I just want to bring it back too. But I guess that's how I'm defining this reboot. It's not that I care about seeing the characters, in 2020 and 2021 like issues, dealing with those types of issues. I just want more content. And some of my picks on this list are just that.
Yeah. I also have a pick that's similar, and that's what I struggled with the term reboot. It's like, is reboot an entirely new show? Like Griffin he wants a new OC. Like he wants the OC, but he wants it new. Or is a reboot taking the old show and just, bringing it back? Yeah. Like I don't think it's that. I don't think a reboot is continuing it, but a revamping of it.
So, yeah, I guess my thing is, if a show's been on a hiatus for more than 5+ years, like at that point, I almost just consider it a reboot. If they bring it back.
When we wrap up today, there's one that I'm gonna say, because it might fall on both of your lists, I don't know, or either of your lists. There's one that I'm gonna say that I think a lot of people are gonna be surprised that I did not put on my list, and it's exactly like I couldn't see it being reimagined with a new cast, but I also couldn't see it being continued from where it left off. And that's all I'm going to say about it now. We'll talk about it at the end. But like, it was like one where I'm like, the term I couldn't put it in either box. So gotcha. I was like, I have to leave it off entirely, even though it's one that like it would still be interesting.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually, I guess, two on my list. There's two on my list where I'm like, would this really be considered a reboot? But yeah, if we go off what Andrew's saying, like if it's away for long enough and it comes back, it's a reboot. Or is a reboot, like, would a reboot of Futurama be, hey, we're back? Or would it be, hey, we're retelling this story but with new jokes? So I didn't look up the definition of reboot because I didn't want to be wrong.
This is the beauty of us not discussing ahead of time. because we just throw everything we want on our list now.
That's true.
Number 4 on my list. I'm getting ready for Griffin to groan. I knew it was going to be on my list.
Oh.
This is Seinfeld. So, all right, hear me out. I think a lot of a Seinfeld reboot would be trash. I think it would be like,
wouldn't it just
I
always
think
sunny?
No, so I think a lot of Seinfeld and specifically Jerry Seinfeld's humor is like meant to live and die in the 90s forever, and like it doesn't need to be brought back. However, there are certain situations that I think the characters, specifically George and Kramer and Elaine, could run into like in a 2020s timeline that could be really funny. And I kind of have evidence of this. Do you remember that old Twitter account that was like Modern Seinfeld or whatever, where they basically just had plots of like what an episode would be like, like Kramer does something, George does something, and those are always hilarious. So even though I think most of the reboot of Seinfeld would be bad, I think there'd be like 20% of the episodes that would be very funny to the point that I want to see it.
So you do say that I was going to groan because of that one, and I am, because it's such like a Andrew choice that I knew was coming. But at the same time, I don't think it's a bad pick, even though I think that there are shows that have kind of been in the Seinfeld mold since then. And to your point, Modern Seinfeld Twitter account or whatever the Twitter handle was, like the situations that they would tweet from that account are things that I would rather watch episodes on than the actual show Seinfeld itself. Because one of my biggest issues with Seinfeld itself is that because it's such a specific time capsule of like a really specific time in New York City for these specific people, and like fashion and culture and the style of comedy and everything else, going back and watching it like has just never been appealing to me, because I don't think that those things really like, they didn't really move with the times that well, unless you already like Seinfeld, which I didn't. But if you were to do it with like that level of a group of comedians and like that kind of, not necessarily comedy style, but the situations they find themselves in, and just generally kind of a group of semi-awful people that just keep sticking their foot in their mouths, like I'd watch that. I don't think Jerry Seinfeld could be a writer for it, because I don't think his humor has aged well at all. He has such an observational sense of humor that all of his jokes have been done by so many other people at this point, and he's like too dry and too distant from like modern culture at this point. Like he's like a Billy. But you could find, whoever the next up and comer that's like him.
But it sounds like Andrew's reboot was the same characters, right? Like that was my question. Like, is this a reboot of Seinfeld? The same characters coming back, or is a reboot of Seinfeld, new characters but a similar show?
No, same characters, but the Jerry Seinfeld on the show is not literally Jerry Seinfeld. Like he is playing a character. So yes, it'd be the same characters. But I'd be fine.
I'd watch a show just based around Elaine, even the same actress. I mean, she's the best on the show. Yeah. Like, she's amazing.
I do agree with what Griffin said. Like, Seinfeld's one of the shows, like, I like it. I don't love it like Andrew does, but I don't dislike it like Griffin does. But if you try to sit down and watch it now and you've never watched it or enjoyed it before, you're not going to like it, I don't think.
Yeah.
But if you have not even a connection to it, but you've seen it before, like you understand what it is, you can watch it and enjoy it. Like I can watch an episode and enjoy it. Like I never do, but I could.
There's bits that I enjoy.
As long as the hypotheticals
are. It's like a 20-minute episode of Jerry Seinfeld just being so far up his own ass. Pass.
Right.
I just can't.
All right. Good pick, Andrew. Okay. Number 3 is
not a bad pick. Honestly, not a bad pick. Like, I do agree. Like, I think it is a show that would have an interesting reboot. I don't know if it would be funny. It might fail.
Yeah. And that's what I said. That's what I started my pick with. I said, I think most of it would be bad, but there would be a couple good episodes that would make it worth it. Number 3 on my list is another favorite show of mine that I think you guys both know that I love this show. Another animated show from Adult Swim, Home Movies. This is just, like I said, another one of my favorite all-time adult animated shows. H. John Benjamin. I love everything he does and everything he voice acts in. Brendan Small, Lauren Bouchard, who is the creator of it, who also created Bob's Burgers and writes for Bob's Burgers. So it would be a very Bob's Burgers like show, but it would have maybe my favorite animated character of all time, Coach McGurk, back on there, played by H. John Benjamin. So I just love that show. I think it's one of those ones that I think the kids on the show, they run around making home movies, and I think they, in today's day and age, they could do a lot of new things. It would be different. It would be different because the whole show was like them carrying around this huge video camera, and literally filming home movies like our, like families used to do. Right. Yeah. Maybe they'll be TikTok creators or something, but I love the humor on that show. I think it's so good, and I would like to see it brought back.
I never really watched it, but I agree with everything you said. Like, I love Lauren Bouchard. I love H. John Benjamin. Like, I love Bob's Burgers, I guess. So I mean, I'm in for it. Like, I was never a big show for me, but I'd be super into it because the stuff they make is always hilarious.
Yeah, I think honestly, you could put H. John Benjamin, even though his voice like so barely changes in any of the roles he does, you could put him as a major character in any of the animated shows that he works on or any other show. And there's something about it that just makes it appealing. Like, everything he says is a little bit funnier or a little bit more suave or a little bit more like, go fuck yourself.
I don't know if he still does it, but on his Twitter account, he used to do this thing where he would just bird watch, and he would literally just like record himself just like watching birds. And I don't think it was supposed to be funny. I think he was literally just spotting birds, and like this was a hobby of his. But I always found it hilarious just because the way he talks. It was just the funniest thing.
He talks. Like, there's just something about the way that his voice registers the human ear that just makes everything he says funny. And yeah, I think home movies, while not my favorite project he's been on, and not really one of my like favorite Adult Swim shows, I think it's one that you could super easily translate to 2021, and like the kids are going to be relatively similar with slight updates, and the staff is going to be relatively similar with slight updates. It doesn't seem like a hugely difficult one to reboot, and I'm sure pretty much a lot of people our generation and like the YouTube generation would fucking love it.
And that's the thing, like a lot of these shows on all of our lists, I'm sure, like I had to Google like whether this was actually in production, because like so many of them probably will be rebooted at some point. It seems like every show that had any following whatsoever is eventually going to get rebooted, as long as the people who made the show are still alive.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I could see it happening. I hope it does. Number two, I'm comedy from top to bottom on this list. Number two,
not on the podcast at all.
Number two, I don't know if you guys watched this show on I think it was Showtime, Party Down. I discovered the show.
Party Down almost made my list.
I discovered the show for the first time last year, and I actually just Googled before we started. It seems like they might be in talks to actually make a reboot happen.
I feel like they've been talking for a while, though.
They've been like, a lot of the cast has said they'd be down to do it, and obviously like Adam Scott is one of the biggest names from the cast.
Right.
And he's been like, it's like, I think he said it's like his favorite project that he worked
on. Oh yeah, it's so good. It's so for anyone that doesn't know, it's basically a group of struggling actors. They take up side jobs as like a catering company, and it's hilarious. I mean, yeah, the cast is fantastic. Adam Scott, Ken Marino, like Lizzie Kaplan's on it, like really funny actors.
Who are comedians.
Yeah, it's so good. Jane Lynch was on it. And the thing about Party Down, I feel like it just aired barely too early. If it was a show on like streaming, I feel like it would have just taken off. But like the network, not everyone has Showtime, and it's just like it kind of just like flew under the radar, and I didn't know about it till literally like 2020. So
Showtime or was it Stars?
Maybe Stars actually.
Yeah. I think Stars was trying to get into that kind of content, and it just failed.
Yeah.
And that was part of it. They couldn't figure out how to sell it to their existing subscribers.
Right. But it's so good. It's such a good watch. It's only 2 seasons long, and I hope that they make many more seasons. I hope they reboot it, because it had so much potential to be like one of the best shows of all time.
This did not cross my mind, but I fully agree with this one that it's a hilarious show, and it ended far too early.
Yeah, great.
I clearly
wish I put it at my number one now.
Consider it's one of the shows that almost made my list, and yeah, it's just a show that didn't get its due when it was coming out. I think it's definitely gotten more attention in recent years, especially with how popular Adam Scott got. And it comes up all the time on like writers' lists of like their favorite comedies that didn't get enough of a chance.
Yeah,
it's the show that everybody wants rebooted.
Right. And then, yeah, so as I'm about to say my number one, I kind of wish I flipped my number one and two, because the more I'm talking about Party Down, the more that's kind of my number one priority. And my actual number one, it may be to play to the audience. It's more of a mass pick a little bit. The Office. So The Office is only it only ended 8 years ago at this point. So still fairly new, obviously, but that's already enough time. You know, by the time it actually airs, you know, if they were to reboot it right now, it wouldn't air until 10 years after the finale. So to me, that's plenty of time. I guess my only hesitation is that I don't necessarily want to see more of the same with The Office, because it did go on even longer than I think it needed to initially. However, I would like to see some of the characters, like maybe in a new setting, like new environment. I know the name of the show is The Office, so you can't really switch it up too much, but I think with like the core cast, the original core cast,
like offices,
they definitely had like a magic there for a while, and I'd like to see like something reminiscent of the first couple seasons.
Yeah. I have no interest in this. It ran its course. I don't need any more. It's on.
Fair. I kind of expected this reaction.
I think you're going to get votes from people that are not Tommy and I on this one, that are going to think it's a better pick than it is. But I want to say right here, unabashedly, they're wrong, and it's not a great pick, and it should not have been your number one pick. Party Down should have been.
Yeah.
And I don't think The Office needs a reboot. And I think, quite honestly, the first season of Parks and Rec was very close to an Office reboot in terms of like the style of comedy and all that. And it's not a coincidence that the first season of Parks and Rec is the worst season of Parks and Rec, because that humor and that cast and all of it was just captured at a really specific time. And like the cringiness and the awkwardness and like the sarcasm and like Jim being charismatic and everybody else kind of just like sucking shit. Like it was all just like a perfect combination of things that I don't think they could continue. Because like you said, I think it went on too long. And I was never a huge Office guy, but I've seen a lot of the episodes, not every episode, but I've seen a lot of it. And I know basically all the like major plot points. It just went on too long. And I think people were kind of burned out on it by the time it left.
It did go on too long, to the point that I don't think I've ever finished the last two seasons, just because it's just too much. And kind of hate myself right now for having done this.
But that's the thing. I think a lot of people are probably going to hear that or look at the list when we post them, and they're going to be like, "I would love an Office reboot." Like, there are cast members from The Office that talk about an Office reboot because they haven't done anything.
I don't think people actually want the reboot. Like, they might think they do, but if you think of like The Office was good,
of what it already was.
Yeah, they want more of what it was, but it already wasn't what it was.
Yeah.
Like you said, it went on too long. Like, it already wasn't what it was. So bringing it back, what makes you think you're gonna get back to what it was? Like it.
You're right.
No.
Yeah.
Dumb.
I mean,
dumb,
like anything else. Like are you going to recapture the magic? Like, who knows? There's entirely a chance that they have an updated, modern workplace culture show that. I mean, like I think a lot of people say Superstore is like a Office analog for like retail.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it, but it's fantastic reviews and people are constantly recommending it. But obviously, like, you want the more Office dynamic of it.
Superstore.
I get why you picked it,
but it's not also not consistent. Like Superstore was very funny at times, and other times it fell flat. Like I really like it as a show, but yeah, I mean, I really like The Office. I've watched it through multiple times. I still watch it, when it's on Comedy Central, whatever. But for me personally, I don't need anything more from those characters. Their stories ended, some poorly, but they ended.
Yeah.
I like Steve Carell doing like drama, like films, and like really flexing his acting talent. And what's his name, like directing and being an action star.
Krasinski.
Yeah. This is an example of how easy I will sell out, because I clearly am not passionate about this pick, and I am tired of losing, and I clearly think it's going to help me get a win.
You're really not arguing with us.
Yeah,
but,
no.
I mean, like, is list night like the absolute like 5 best ones that the most people will agree on, or is it the ones that mean the most to us? You know, in my case, it's both, because I'm the best, and I speak for the people. But for you guys, you know, maybe you're just trying to speak to the audience, and you know, you don't have any values. You just don't have any values. Is really what it comes down to.
So my number, so my recap is number 5, Futurama. Number 4, Seinfeld. Number 3, Home Movies. Number 2, Party Down. And number 1, The fucking Office.
Fucking Office. I would watch that reboot. I'd watch that reboot
sound
every
like
day.
me.
Fucking Office? Oh yeah.
You sound like me during the minor holidays. Just
that's the one you won.
Defeated. That's
the one you won. Because it works.
It's awful for him. I think I voted for him because I was like, man, if he doesn't get this win, it might be a 2-man podcast going forward.
It might be a Party Down.
And we'll be wearing all black, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
All right, so on to the winning list.
Oh, we're repeating mine? We're going to go back to me? I'll do it again.
Drum roll, please. Anyway, mine is a mix of some where it's like a complete reboot, and then some where it's like a Futurama, like you said, like kind of continuation type thing. There's
Didn't
one.
You kind of shit on me for this?
No, I said I didn't know what reboot meant.
Oh,
so I was trying to figure out what it meant to you. I don't agree that a sequel is a reboot.
Well,
anyway,
I don't necessarily a sequel.
God.
Just because it's set on Earth
years
later doesn't make it a sequel. Whatever.
Do I interrupt you before you start your list?
Almost exclusively.
You've interrupted me, I think, every episode after I say my number 5 pick, and I'm like, I'm going to start talking about it. And then you raise your hand, which, why do I call on you, is the first question. But I'm excessively
I have 2 traditions: throwing things at you and interrupting you. All right? That's all I got. That's all I got.
And this time you didn't do one of them. So, I mean, at least you still have the other. You're consistently inconsistent.
All right, so my number 5, if Griffin's done, is I will preface this. They did reboot it and it failed. So reboot that 70s show. They rebooted it into that 80s show. It was crap. I wanted that 90s show.
You know who was on that 80s show? I'm pretty sure.
I don't, because I never watched it.
That played Dennis. I'm pretty sure Glenn Howerton was on that 80s show.
Was that 80s show like it related to that 70s show? I thought it was just like a everybody hates Chris, everybody loves Raymond kind of deal.
Yeah. It wasn't like related. Yeah, it didn't like connect.
It was just while that 70s show was on top of the world, like, and it was drawing crazy numbers. And I don't remember if there was like a pause in seasons coming out,
I have no
or
idea.
if they came out concurrently or something like that. But it bombed.
I never watched that 80s show, and like I have no interest to, and I know it did terribly. But I think like that 70s show, a lot like The Office, probably went on too long. A lot like a lot of shows went on too long. But what it had for most of the airtime was just phenomenal. And that cast, the chemistry of the cast, like it was just great. So to do that, but with, you know, the culture and world of the 90s, which at this point is, you know, it's 20 years ago to get even into the decade, but that means you have 30 years to get to the beginning of the 90s decade. So like there's a lot of material that could be used from the 90s that I think would be great for a show like that.
Just to fully confirm, Glenn Howerton was the starring character on that 80s show. So if Always Sunny didn't take off like fairly soon after that, that was probably I could see that being a career ender because that show did not do well.
What year was that? That 80s
2002. It only ran for the one season, and it ran. I think they initially ordered like 26 episodes, and then they cut it in half, and they only aired 13. And I think they aired the last 3 like on the same day or something like it just didn't do.
It bombed. It bombed.
Yeah.
It crashed and burned and bombed and.
Nobody asked
for it. But yeah, that 70s show, good show. Yeah, I'd watch a 90s version of it.
Right. So
back to the reboot definition. Is this? I mean, I guess they're different characters.
So to me, this is a reboot in the sense that you're taking what a show was and rebooting it for modern times.
So it's exactly like I said about The West Wing and MASH and the OC.
The OC, no. West Wing and MASH, yes.
How is it different than whatever? I don't even know your
criteria. Because the OC, you're just like, I want the OC.
But rebooted for modern times with a more modern cast.
But your thing wasn't about modern times. Like I just felt like the OC wasn't about modern times. I feel like every CW show since the OC has been a reboot of the OC. Well, I can't confirm that. I'm pretty sure that's what I feel.
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was on Fox. So how embarrassed are you?
I'm not embarrassed because a different network can still reboot.
You know what was on the CW? Smallville was at similar times, and I had to watch both of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say CW is a lot of like superhero origin stories and
vampires,
random. But vampire. Like, they have a lot of like the teenage drama shit. All right, I'm right. You're wrong. My list is great. Yeah. Number 4. I'm torn between wanting to change this one or not, but I'm gonna go with my gut, even though I don't consider this a definition of a reboot and it's more of a continuation. My Name is Earl. I don't think it gets credit now, I think, for being hilarious, because it was, but it just kind of ended, and it definitely needs a better ending.
I feel like I remember something about this. Like the script runner, after it was canceled or after it ended or whatever, he said how it was going to end.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, the producer did.
It sounded really good, like the way that they were planning on ending it versus what they ended up getting, because they didn't know they were going to get canceled, like a lot of shows. Yeah, I mean, like it wasn't one of my favorite shows or anything like that, but a lot of people loved it, and it definitely. I think it's one of those shows that ended up having like kind of like cult status. Like not as many people were watching it as the people that actually liked it.
Yes.
So it was one of those shows that
streaming era kind of makes sense.
Exactly. When it was on the air, I remember seeing like commercials for it all the time, and I was like, "Who watches that? I don't think anyone watches that." And then as soon as it ended, everyone's like, "That was a really good show."
Like, it happens so often, and it's like, but then people are like, "Why weren't you watching?" It's like I don't have a Nielsen box. Nobody cares if I watch it. Like, it doesn't affect me.
It aired from 05 to 09, and I don't think I watched a episode in that time frame.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the show. But yeah, I don't think I watched a episode in those 4 years, the 4 seasons of it as it was airing.
Another great set of comedians.
Number 3, kind of on the same page, where it's more of a I just want more of it, and it got in too soon. And this is the one I thought was going to be on your list, Griffin, and it's Firefly. And
so this is the one I will explain later.
That's what I thought you might. My issue with it is again, I don't really want to reboot. I just want more.
The funny thing about this is actually 3rd on my list and crossed out. So we are even on the same place on our list where we have Firefly.
And the whole thing is like, in terms of if it would be a reboot and not just more like the setting of this show is so ripe for storytelling that there's so much you could do with it, even if you're not able to use the same characters. Like the space opera dynamic, or whatever you want to call it, the Western space characters, like there's so much to do within that genre that they were not able to do through the 1 season and a movie.
There was only 14 episodes. I didn't realize that.
And not aired like in order.
They aired out of order, and they didn't air all of them. And the first episode they aired was the 2nd episode. So when they aired the pilot later on, it made no sense to people because A, it was longer, B, the tone was different, and C, it came before the first episode they aired. Here's why Firefly didn't make my list.
I don't know like what Fox as a network was doing in the 2000s, because they canceled shows like so quickly. And Family Guy made fun of it. Remember when Family Guy got canceled, and he was like,
they were like,
and when they came back, they're like, well, I suppose if all those shows get canceled, then we have a shot at coming back or whatever. And he lists like 50 shows,
a bunch of shows.
Here's the one thing I'll say about Fox that people never really give them credit for. Fox was willing to try with a lot of shows that other networks weren't, but they clearly didn't give them a very long leash. Like there was a lot of science fiction,
very short leash,
fantasy and stuff, and like just interesting shows that other networks wouldn't take a risk on, that NBC and CBS weren't doing when they were doing their 24/7 crime dramas, that Fox would greenlight and then would promote poorly and have to cancel. So we got to see, like, we are able to miss shows that were super interesting in concept that we would never have known about otherwise. That's the whole thing about Fox. They still don't love the way they did it, but it is what it is. As it relates to Firefly, a couple of reasons why this didn't make my list, and I'm just going to talk about him now and interrupt Tommy's pick because fuck him, that's why. Firefly, just like you, I'm not going to call on you raising your hand. Just like Tommy said, I don't know if it would be a sequel where I follow the same characters or a different set of characters in the same universe. If it's the same characters, I think too much time has gone by because it's been like 15 years since the movie, and they're all kind of, they have other stuff going on. If it's a reboot if it's a reimagining with the same characters but different actors, we have no way of knowing if like the script is going to read as well or if the chemistry between the cast is going to play as well. It may end up being a much worse show. It may be a better show, but the chemistry of the cast was a huge part of it. And then the third part of it that is kind of worth mentioning, a lot of people make this comparison all the time. We have a space Western now. It's called Mandalorian and it's on Disney Plus. And obviously it's not the same show, but like, are people clamoring for more content like that? I don't know. Like, if it didn't have the Star Wars name attached to it, would Mandalorian be anywhere near as popular as it was? No. Firefly is intensely popular, but would people watch it if it was rebooted with different characters and all that? I don't know. Like, it might fail again.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This list isn't reboots I think will be successful. This is reboots I want.
Reboots
so shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
I kind of like.
I have my issues with Mandalorian. And like Serenity, the movie, it's great.
It up. I have a quote from it literally tattooed on my body, but it's because of how much I love the show.
But that's the thing. Like, it was great to get that because we didn't get more of the show, but that's the thing. Like, I don't see it as closure for the show. Like, it's almost like two different things to me.
Especially because they opened up more potential plot threads in a movie intended for closure, and it's like, why would you do that?
Yeah,
like, this was supposed to be like the bow at the end. Sorry, Andrew, I've interrupted you like 30 times.
No, it's all good. I was just all ready to say that I like the pick, that Firefly was a good pick, but then hearing from Griffin being so lukewarm on it, I thought Griffin is like the target audience. Like, I thought he was going to cream his jeans over this pick. And
I'm wearing sweatshorts.
And hearing your lukewarm reaction to it, now I'm like, yeah, maybe it's a shitty pick. So
no, but again, the quality of the pick does not relate to how successful it'd be.
Yeah, no, I know.
No,
but still, I don't like you.
Why would you?
Fair.
I fully get why you would want to reboot this, and it was so like it was on my list until a half hour before we started recording, but I was just like, I might like Firefly as a universe less if we got it rebooted. Like, it might take away from the original show. I don't know.
That's like I said earlier. Like, there's one of my lists that I was confident would be on one of yours list, and this was it. But so I guess my mindset is I want to explore that universe because I don't have the love for Star Wars that you do. Like, I appreciate Star Wars for what it is. The Mandalorian it's good. I'm pretty fucking over it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And like, I'm over the Star Wars universe. The Firefly universe is similar, yes, but there's differences in it that I would like to explore that were not able to be explored.
It was a good season that deserved much better than it got. But you also have to deal with, if you bring it back, if you do a modern reboot, do you bring back Joss Whedon, who is not Hollywood's most loved guy right now? Yeah, great writer, interesting writer, funny writer, kind of a piece of shit. So maybe it wouldn't be good without him. I don't know.
A lot of those out there. Yeah. I'm not saying
on this podcast.
I'm not saying it would be I'm not saying it'd be great or anything, but it is something like I'd like to see.
I get it. I like I said, I get it as a pick.
Moving on to my number 2. And this is one that was actually kind of done by some kids when I was at school. Like, they made a short not even short film, a short series, kind of.
You reach out to Aaron Sorkin?
No. But theirs was like college based. This, whatever. Ned's Declassified School Survivor Guide. I think rebooting it, and you can do the same characters or whatever, but rebooting it not for kids, but for us, and make it adult.
What would it be called? Just life survival guide or something?
Ned's Declassified How Not to Commit Suicide. I don't know.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Guide to having a career and a wife and a kid that I don't like.
But I think the dynamic of characters in that and the way that story was told, which now that I think about it, they kind of did with some show called Cooper's something, and it was actually kind of good. Oh, there's a show that they kind of did this.
I don't know what that is, but I did love Ned's Declassified as a kid. But yeah. I don't know. It would it's another one I'd be interested to see how they would do it, because it was such a, like, the genre was such a kids show. Like it was like everything was meant to be in a school. You're dealing with a teacher, dealing with like a very school and teenage related problems. And I know like you could do something similar for adults. I just don't know how they would do it.
I'm not going to be able to find this.
Potentially ended up being a workplace comedy.
That's true. Yeah, like, that could be kind of funny.
I mean, this is like Ned's Declassified, I'm pretty sure, was a Nickelodeon show, and we are currently in the midst of iCarly getting a lot of positive buzz because people like the reboot of it, because it, just like Lizzie McGuire was going to be, it's a reboot designed for the original fans of the show who grew up and now want something relatable for them at this stage in our lives, which is with our generation. I mean, I could see it doing well. I don't know if Ned's Declassified Guide was ever as popular as like iCarly or Lizzie McGuire was, but I mean, there's probably something there.
Yeah, I no longer like my pick because I remember the show Cooper Barrett's Guide to Surviving Life, which I actually watched and was like pretty funny. Only aired for a season.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
Another show canceled by Fox. Another show canceled by Fox. Of course it's by Fox.
Yeah.
That they did not air the last 3 episodes. So
that's the way they do things.
Fox just has like an endless bunch of unaired episodes.
Online,
it did debut
online. So Fox is actually actively going out of their way to make things difficult for new shows to take off.
So much like Andrew in his first pick, I'm not loving my. I mean, I still want it because I did like Cooper Barrett's show, and Mose was pretty cool.
The last thing I'll say about Ned's Declassified is like, it's such a kid's show in that it's not just that it's set in a school and it was aimed at teenagers. It also like had a bunch of like gross out humor and like stuff that was clearly kid humor, like toilet humor and stuff.
Andrew, do you not laugh at farts anymore?
I do. Honestly, the word poop sends me every time.
Now you can just do like the sex-based version of that. Like,
what's funny?
That's not as funny. Poop is funny.
Ned gets done banging out one of his side pieces, and
did you let Ned and what was the girl Mose? They dated apparently while they were filming the last season of that. That's a fun fact.
Andrew, what do you find funnier, poo or poop?
Poop.
Yeah, me too. The extra P really does it.
The P,
it's alliterative. Yeah, it's alliterative.
And then if you flip it, it's boob.
Real anecdote here. So I was at Myrtle Beach with my family last week, and one day it was rainy, and we were playing.
Come up for autographs.
We were playing Bananagrams, and so I don't know if you play Bananagrams. You have to basically make a little Scrabble set, the individual Scrabble set, and use all of your letters.
Are you explaining this to us, who you've played Bananagrams with before? Or are you explaining to other people?
I don't know. Anyways, okay, I know.
I don't think so.
So the first like few letters I pull out, I put in vertically poop, and then P is horizontal. I spent
shut up with this gross humor wouldn't translate.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It would be perfect. But no, I spent the entire time trying to fit the other letters because I was not going to move the poo and the P or the poop and the P. I was like, that's hilarious. I'm keeping that. And my parents were like, you're 28. Like
comedy. There's no way I'm changing that. Before we move on, after Andrew's really long and just totally unnecessary description of his vacation with his family, I think it's worth noting for the audience that so far in this episode, Andrew has not loved his list. Thomas has not loved his list.
Oh, get out of here.
Who has loved their list? Griffin has loved his list because his.
It's a good thing because you're the only fucking one who will.
Yeah, who the fuck cares if you like it? Who the fuck cares if you like it?
Bring it back.
Bring it back. If you like it, it doesn't matter if they like it.
Primal, man. Yeah, I'm just saying, you guys. If you can't love your list, how can anyone else?
So my number one. My number one, which I was gonna pull an Andrew and just do like a whole genre, but I decided not to.
Pulling an Andrew.
But there's 3 shows and that like fit into this genre that I'd like rebooted. I nailed it down to 1 because I'm not a cheater, so it's only 1. I'm not saying Aaron Sorkin. I'm saying there's 3 different shows by 3 different people.
So yours is more of a cheating than mine. Whatever.
But he's picking one. He's picking one.
Picking one.
I picked one.
No, you didn't.
I also
begrudgingly you picked one.
Begrudgingly.
The genre,
begrudgingly.
Subgenre that it was within.
Thomas isn't asking for a parentheses in his pick. No, you were asking for a parentheses.
Mine is a genre. Yours is a writer.
I hate you.
Okay.
I actively
am
against your success.
My number one is my number one is Zena, Warrior Princess. Because I think they're... What?
I said don't involve Kevin Sorbo, the guy that played Hercules in the Hercules series. He's a douche.
Was one of the other shows.
I figured probably that and Young Hercules maybe, but I don't know.
No, Beastmaster.
Is Beastmaster in the same universe?
No, I didn't say universe.
Same kind of
genre. Same kind of show. Anyway, I think there's space. There's space, at least in my world, for a show like this. And I went with Xena because Hercules is a bit overdone, but Xena, Warrior Princess, still has that Greek mythology and other mythology mixed in with it, which I really enjoy. So I think there's a space for a show like this of a hero's journey set in this time. And much like some of Griffin's shows, like the technology nowadays, it's going to look so much better.
Here's my
Lucy Lawless.
That's going to be my big question. Are you bringing my girl Lawless back? Because
she's going to make a cameo.
She looks great. I'm pretty sure she's still in action hero shape. She was in an episode or a few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a few years ago, and she looked like she still absolutely fucks. I mean, just cast her back in it. Get the girl that played her sidekick back. We know that they were alluding to a relationship between the two of them. It's 2021.
Make it happen.
Straight up now. Yeah. And also, that show was awesome. It was definitely the best of those 3 shows you named. I would watch every episode. That's a great reboot pick.
Yeah, I'd watch it. It's come to my realization that the best picks for reboots are like the cult following shows, whereas like the mainstream shows like The Office, like that, not so much. But the ones that had like a cult following that were underappreciated at their time and just have the cult following has grown over the years, those are the best shows to have a reboot. And I feel like this falls.
So about like internet cult following is that like a cult following like back in the day was like a few thousand to like maybe 1 million fans were like going to conventions across the country and like buying your stuff. With the internet, a cult following could literally be like tens of millions of people.
More people than watch like mainstream shows.
Yeah.
Well, so and Xena actually it ran for 6 seasons. 95 to 01. And it was actually ended up being it's a spin-off of the Hercules show, and it was actually more successful than the Hercules show by the end of it.
For good reason.
And but yeah, I mean I there are shows nowadays. You can look at The Mandalorian, like we mentioned, that follows the singular hero's journey, blah blah blah. But I don't know of a show that I enjoy with the same kind of storyline as Xena or Hercules would bring to the table. And I mean, I'm all for a badass warrior princess, TV show. I'm all for it.
Give me more warrior princess TV shows, honestly. I don't need damsels in distress. I need badass bitches that are just fucking shit up left and right.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. All right, give us your recap, and then we'll do some honorable mentions, and we'll wrap it up.
Number 5 was that 90s show, a reboot of that 70s show. Number 4 was more of My Name is Earl. Number 3 is Firefly. 2 is Ned's Declassified School Survivor Guide, which was already rebooted, I guess technically, but whatever, we'll blow past it. And one is Zena, Warrior Princess.
All right. You know,
and that is how you count.
I like your number one. I like picks on there. I don't love the whole list. Obviously, we talked about it at length, but I do understand the thought process behind all of them, and I'm just glad that you didn't pick The Office
or Seinfeld.
Whatever. My 5 through 2.
I'd rather you pick.
Are going to get me the win.
Yeah, I think there is a real chance that Andrew picking some mainstream choices with Seinfeld and The Office.
You saying we don't have a cult following?
Yeah, I'm just a mainstream guy.
You are a mainstream guy.
Mainstream motherfucker.
Yeah. I mean, is home movies that mainstream?
Any honorable mentions that really jumped out that you were like super on the edge
about? Street Sharks.
Oh shit!
Damn,
I would have voted for you if you put on Street Sharks.
Yeah, I don't know if Street Sharks would find the audience that it found in the 90s.
I almost put Street Sharks instead of My Name Is Earl, and I was like, I don't really even remember Street Sharks like that, like details of it. I just think it didn't get its due because of Ninja Turtles, which I love, but
I had a bunch of Street Sharks toys though.
You did. I remember that.
Yeah, you remember those things? Those are awesome.
I didn't know they made Street Sharks toys, but I'm actually pretty sure they made the TV show just to promote the toys, so that does make sense.
Probably.
A few quick honorable mentions for me. I had Dexter's Lab, Martin, Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist, and I put Fresh Prince, and then I took it off because apparently it is getting a reboot. So,
they had that YouTube video,
they did a reunion, right?
A couple of
years but apparently they're doing like 2 seasons of some level of a reboot, like
really
next year or something. Yeah.
Did you guys see the YouTube video that somebody produced a couple years ago? That was like a modern or adult retelling, and it was like it was filmed really awesomely. Yeah, it looked awesome, but it would also it looked like there was zero humor in it because it was just hey, we want to work on this project, let us do it. Two. Honestly, both that I'm kind of surprised that neither of you had on your list. In particular, Thomas, I'm surprised you didn't have these. One of them that I thought about was Freaks and Geeks. There was a long time period where people kept trying to be like, get the cast back together, do another season. Obviously, the majority of them are like mega stars, like some of the biggest names in comedy and TV. And I don't even know how you would reboot it. Like, it's been so long since the first season. And it just leaves off at such like a pivotal point in like where they were going to go with future seasons that it might not even be worth it. Yeah. The other one that I'm surprised Thomas in particular didn't say, Batman Beyond. I could see a lot of room for that one being like the Batman that animated show, because like pretty much every few years there's a Batman animated show on TV. Batman Beyond is fucking ripe for being like a 15-year run of episodes, because you can basically repeat every situation that Batman Bruce Wayne has been on and just do it with Terry McGinnis and throw like a futuristic tint on it, and like people love the animation style and everything, and it was just a popular show with our generation. Get Will Friedle back to do the voice again. I'd buy a box set.
It did not cross my mind, but I'm 100% for that. And now you said it, I know they're making a movie for Static Shock, but a Static Shock reboot, I love Static Shock the show. So that's another animated superhero movie. Freaks and Geeks, I did think about it. My issue is I'd like to see the same characters, but it's been so long and we didn't get enough of them early on that to see them in their age now, like who would really care?
I just don't even know if I'd be able to like separate it. Like if I were to watch it now, I'd watch the first season and then I'd watch the second season. It'd be like, first season, I'd be like Jason Segel's character. Second season, I'd be like, that's Jason Segel. First season, it's James Franco's character. And then I'm just like, oh, I'm just watching James Franco. Like, with crinkly smile.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But it would have been a good pick, but it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So my list is best. Cool. Have a good night.
Yeah. You guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode. Thank you guys for participating in another episode. I would love to say it's been a pleasure, but I am rooting against the success for both of you. Like I said,
participating more like participating.
If you haven't liked us on YouTube, make sure you do so. Make sure you subscribe, share with your friends, throw it on Facebook. We recently started the Facebook page. Make sure you go like us there. It's just list night. Comment on our shit, like our shit. If we ever come out with merch, buy our merch. We're not there yet, but Redbox, please give us a call. We want to bring red hats back. Good episode, guys. Had a good time.
This night, bringing red hats back.
Bringing red hat. Oh, dicey.